moderator. Thank you very much, tech team, for the sound. How are we feeling? Do we want to share stories of war? Yes, because we are at war. Every day, no? I welcome you to this final panel. We promise to keep it interesting and to keep it pithy, because you will be running the show for most of it. Let me welcome my panelists. We'll start with Dr. Aissata Mahoy. Her Excellency, Dr. Aissata Mahoy is the Minister for Gender and Children Affairs in the Republic of Sierra Leone. Dr. Aissata has previously worked at the Social Development Department at the World Bank, working to prevent gender-based violence and integrate social protections. She has, in her rich repertoire, significantly impacted national and regional platforms, as seen by her repeated recognition as one of Sierra Leone's most prominent leaders. As a clergyman, woman, and community activist, Dr. Mahoy is advancing the cause of a fairer society throughout all Africa, not just in Sierra Leone. Let's have a round of applause for Her Excellency. Next, we have Seraphine Wakana. Madam Seraphine is the United Nations Resident Coordinator for the Republic of Sierra Leone. She has served in the same position in the Republic of the Gambia and in Guinea. She has an amazing resume. She's worked for the Africa Development Bank, for the World Bank, in different countries in Africa. She has been an honorary consul of the Republic of Korea and Burundi, has served as Minister of Development, Planning and Reconstruction, and many, many other phenomenal positions. Welcome, ma'am. Finally, I will welcome Ishmael Alfred Charles. Ishmael is the programs manager of Caritas Freetown. He's an author of From a Child Soldier to a Humanitarian. Ishmael is a development and humanitarian expert with over 16 years experience in project development. He's a child protection expert with over 8 years practical experiences in running Sierra Leone sick picking projects, which continues to ensure proper health and well-being of undeserved and less privileged children across Sierra Leone. Power-packed panel for an amazing conversation, trading in stories of war. The topic of our panel today is what if women ran the peace process? But better still, what if women ran the world? Mr. DJ, for later, for the cake session. What if women ran the peace process? Let me give you a bit of a synopsis before we start our conversation. We know that war disproportionately impacts women, not just as collateral victims, but really as targets in warfare. According to UN Women, 70% of casualties in conflicts are civilian, and most of them are women and children. Yet, women are often excluded from the formal peace negotiations. Picture this. Only 13% of negotiators and 6% mediators in major peace processes were women between 1992 and 2019. It gets worse. In 2022, women represented only 16% of negotiators in active peace processes led by or co-led by the United Nations. And this was a decline from 23% in 2020. No women were included in negotiating teams for conflicts in Ethiopia, in Myanmar, in Sudan, in Yemen, in the Balkans, and in many, many other countries. This exclusion persists despite evidence that peace agreements with women's participation are 20% more likely to last more than 2 years if led by women or if women are involved, 35% more likely to last at least 15 years, and 64% more likely to be successful if grassroots women are involved in the peace process. Now, I will start with Madam Seraphine, because the UN is on trial here. Based on your experience, amazing experience across several African countries, how can UN agencies shift from gender-sensitive programming to feminist peace building to better support women leading in conflict-affected areas? And what is the United Nations doing to ensure that women are properly in charge of peace-building processes?
Thank you. I was hoping to come after the minister because she's my boss. And when I'm here talking, I'm the UN, but the UN has no priority in countries. We do support countries' priorities. So she may come after to just maybe emphasize on what we do in Sierra Leone. But maybe since you are going beyond Sierra Leone and using my previous experience, I've joined the UN for the 10 past years, but as you mentioned, I used to also work in different organizations, and I also worked for my own country. And for me, I've been here in the morning listening. I've never been an activist. I'm a former, would say, really working under frameworks. So the UN has a framework, and I believe you have been citing some of the frameworks that you also use. All the what we have been advocating for, from New York to Beijing to everywhere, are those frameworks that we are applying to all countries. I would say that mostly what I would say is for the UN, empowering women is a must. It's not like any agency in here will say, no, I can do my program without really having any emphasis on women. We have the scorecard that we need to frame in all our programs. So for us, I believe saying that women representation in any kind of framework, we have to ensure that they are represented.
Are you? Is the UN ensuring that women are represented?
We are doing, and I'm sure the minister will also support what I'm saying. But, as you also mentioned, representation is a need, but representation is not enough. We know that it's not enough, but we also think that when the women are not represented, we don't want to see them taking just decisions that were made by men. So we still need representation of women to be able to also put on the table the real needs. But we are the ones who understand better what we need.
Absolutely.
No one can express it better than us. But I believe that maybe representation is not enough, and that is where I think the UN has a role to play. how do we ensure that those women on the table have capacity to represent others, to really make sure that when women are sitting, the men will not again go back and rule over them. So true inclusion is empowering women, is making them to really bring the voice at the level where it needs to be. And it's also an issue of understanding your society. And I think the mayor really made it clear in the morning, and I hope we are not going to be annoying you by repeating what have been already said in the morning. But I believe to be able to represent, you need to understand, you need to be capacitated, and that is where the UN is coming to bring capacities to those women who wants to lead. We do it through capacity building, and not only for those women who want to come up and lead through civil society and other organizations, but we also do institutions capacity building. Minister here sitting, she needs to also lead, and we do provide capacity to institutions.
Yeah.
We bring capacities on legal reforms.
Yeah.
Because all those are needed for those who want to lead as women to understand that this is where your fight is. And how do you fight if you don't understand what you are fighting for? We also, for us, as you did mention in some of the statistics that you mentioned, there are a kind of disconnect between the women who are leading at the top and those at the community level. So our concept of leaving no one behind, that is where, again, the UN comes from, to ensure that women at the community level are also leading and understand and can be heard, and their voices can go beyond their small community, their families, because that starts from the community but has to go beyond, because those who are deciding in Freetown needs to understand that they are deciding for those at the community level.
Yeah. I'll come back to that point because it's an amazing point. But you're right that governments and states have the real power to make the inclusion and to ensure that we have proper representation of women in peace-building processes. Madam Minister, drawing from Sierra Leone's experience, what lessons has Sierra Leone learned about the role of women in post-conflict recovery? What is still missing from peace-building frameworks? And what commitment can national governments make to be more inclusive?
Thank you. First off, I will start by saying if women run the peace process, peace will not only be an event, it will be a lived reality where you have care, equity, and accountability. And for us as a government, a lot of people know the history where we're coming from. And I'll tell you, from the time of the war to when the war ended, women played a very important role. Because it was women who went to Bintu Madi 1 and 2, who said, enough is enough, we want peace. We don't want war anymore. Because it was women who felt the pain, who suffered the most. And you can attest that in any conflict, it is women who are more vulnerable, women and children who are more vulnerable to that particular conflict. We have done a lot as a government. In the past years, Sierra Leone has been marked as one of the countries that is following. But I also want to toe the line of the RC, the resident coordinator seated here, to say what the UN has done. It was because the UN had seen that there were lots of wars, conflict in many countries, between 1990 to 2000 that they said we should have the MDGs. This is the origin. And you check the goal 3 of the MDG was how we get equality and empowering women. That's goal 3. And today we're talking about the SDGs. Well, when we had the MDGs, we thought that countries would try to see how much effort they can put. So the UN saw that because we did not achieve the MDGs in 15 years, we need to go back to the drawing table to say, how do we move forward from year 2000 to 2015 to get the SDGs? And then we have the SDG 4 and others that talks about how to protect, empower women. But before that, we have the WPS agenda that came into form. The resolution 1325 that was put forward by UN, which is the one that talks about inclusion, how we include women in leadership position, how we allow them to participate, how we protect them in the space, and how we provide relief and recovery, looking at those 4 pillars. Those 4 pillars teaches us that as a country, we need to domesticate here in Sierra Leone to see how we position women in the peace-building process. And that is why Sierra Leone is one of the first countries, like the 7th country in Africa, that domesticated or began to develop the Sierra Leone National Action Plan for implementing the WPS agenda. Today, as I sit here, we have developed the 3rd generation of the plan. Sierra Leone is one of those 37 countries in the world that have developed the 3rd generation of the action plan. Because that plan is what guides us as a country, how to move forward. And I will authoritatively tell you that it is because of Sierra Leone is domesticating all of these international treaties that were put forward by the UN that we signed, and we are domesticating that we are on the landmark that we're growing as one of those countries that is willing to accept change. So this is why we have seen Ambassador Yansane talked about the GWI Act. The GWI Act is one, but we have several others. We started from the gender justice laws in 2007. We talk about domestic violence, registration of customary marriage, and then devolution of estate act. All of these are trying to see how we provide the space for women so that we'll reduce the level of inequality, the gap between men and women, and help reduce problems in the homes, in the communities, and in the workplace.
Yeah.
So as a result of that, we have had a series of laws also that followed late 2019 to 2024. We have even the prohibition of child marriage. All of these are because we needed to bridge the gap because we want women to be there. And in leadership position, we have seen what the laws have created. We have had a tremendous increase in the number of women in parliament, which is 30%. When you talk about getting ordinary members, and 28% when you include both the female paramount chiefs and the female parliamentarian. In parliament, we have, in cabinet, we have 34.5 female cabinet ministers and 34% female deputy ministers. In total, when you put those aggregates together, we have a 36% women in cabinet. So it's a long journey that we have come from, and it is because of the role of women. The civil society organization, the space is being created. There is the enabling environment. We may have challenges here and there, but there is the enabling environment where civil society will say, no, we need this. And so they put pressure on government.
And that's amazing, but the taste of the pudding is in the eating.
Yeah.
Ishmael. And Madam Minister, I will come back to you so that we can progress the discussion on Sierra Leone's leadership, but also to draw on your experience at the international level as a representative of state government and how we can really put women in the driver's seat even at that policy level. But Ishmael, you have lived through war, and you now work in humanitarian peace building here in Sierra Leone. As Madam Minister has indicated, Sierra Leone has been in the front line to domesticate international resolutions and to provide a platform and framework to support and facilitate communities to engage in peace building. What role, how have you seen the inclusion and involvement of women in peace building from your experience as a humanitarian worker? And how can men who have survived conflict become true allies in building peace that centers on women's dignity and leadership? Have you felt the domestication of the platforms and policies? What have you observed as you've been engaging in these processes? And how can men really provide that space for women to lead those processes?
Thank you. I think the very first part that we have to understand is the significant reality that in a society where it's been a male-dominated society, and Sierra Leone is no exception, we had a history where in the north, some of the areas in the northern part of the country, women were not allowed to even go to school. We had history where Frabe College will not allow women to become engineers, students, and the likes. Those are all history that we have passed. However, back looking at the realities with the conflict that we had, women had always had issues to deal, had always had challenges to deal with the realities of everyday life, because when it comes to bearing the brunt of the pains of the families, it has to be with women. And because they are mostly excluded in the decision-making processes, it makes it really very difficult to have a properly tailored program that actually protects their interest. Mm-hmm. And so we had, as Madam Minister mentioned, the Bintumani 1 and 2, where women championed the issues of having peace in Sierra Leone. 50-50 women became a very prominent group that challenged and fought for Sierra Leone's peace, you know, joining hands with the Interreligious Council and the likes. However, that didn't change the narrative fully, because to get to where Madam Minister mentioned now with the 36% in cabinet and the 30% in parliament has been over 2 decades, consistent engagement from the days, probably I should say almost 3 decades, from the days of President Kaba in 2002 when we had the War Done Done peace deal signed, until those pledges were made from those very moments. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission report, which most of our political leaders do not want to show interest in, spells out very clearly and explicitly the situations that actually brought the war. And social exclusion was a very significant aspect. And up till today, we still have significant issues of social exclusion of people, and mostly women and young people. So the realities haven't really changed that much. Nonetheless, it has to be a continuous engagement and continuous process, because people with lived experience has to be on the table. When young people are captured, children are captured and used as child soldiers, it's mothers who ends up becoming therapists. It's mothers who ends up becoming psychosocial support systems. Because as a country, we do not believe that psychosocial support is an important thing. We only started talking about it very recently. Yeah? We always say we're a people of resilience, and I always say our resilience stops at where we've had a second beating and probably the third one, because we will not be resilient forever. Sierra Leone has faced a lot of challenges, and we have had fall many times. We should pick up ourselves and say never again, and put systems in place, have mechanisms wherein people with lived experience, women were also child soldiers, young women who probably might be older than me and younger than me today, needs to be engaged. How did they suffer? What were the realities that they met? During the days of the conflict, the rebels will make very silly arguments just because they want to kill a woman. If a pregnant woman is standing in front of them, they will always have an argument whether she's going to give birth to a boy or a girl. That's a way of finding justifiable reasons so that they can split her womb open. We saw lots of barbaric realities. And as mentioned by previous speakers, women were being used, are always being used in conflict situations as weapons of the war.
Yeah.
They will use them to send messages. And in a circumstance wherein they're not involved enough in the decision-making process, it's bizarre. And when the conflict ends, they also have to clean up the mess, taking care of the kids who were in difficult situation. My mother was my only psychotherapist. She provided my full support in helping me to become the man I am today. From breaking stones to keep me in school, to supporting my process, to supporting my education, and providing that consistent psychosocial support, and always pushed me not to tell my story. I only started telling my story that I was a child soldier in 2012, when I was already an adult.
Wow. Wow.
And that is because she didn't want to deal with more post-stress traumatic disorders. So when I first met an American priest who I first told bits of my story, and my mom, and he pushed that I should write a book and tell my story. And my mom said, "You're now an adult." When I went to ask her permission, she said, "You're not an adult, you can deal with your own problems now." So imagine the circumstance, how much, because most times when we're even playing, growing up in Wellington, and probably I'm playing at the backyard with friends and other kids, and she will hear me making an attempt to tell my story. She will scream my name in a very loud way, in a very scary way, literally telling me, "Shut up." That's what she meant when she screams my name like that.
Yeah.
And because she was dealing with the everyday reality after I told her all the experiences that I had. And so it's a very sad situation, but every day we have to deal with those realities because women have always been neglected and not involved fully in the process of reconciliation and even signing peace deals. So my take, if women run peace, it will be softened. The conversations will be much empathic, and realistically, we know for sure that as someone who has a leadership background, when women negotiate, when women lead, they lead with transformation and transformative style. When men do, we do it with transactional style. That is why most times we pay people to do what we want, and when we finish with them, we dump them. Women keep those relationships longer.
Yeah. And I think that the realization that war lays to waste human dignity is poignant. Because when it's raining bombs in Gaza and women are being wiped out in Sudan and in many other countries, you have a press talk show at the White House in measures of might in terms of who has more power than who. And really that is not an example of how to drive conversations. I want to turn the conversation to you, the audience, to engage with our phenomenal panelists on your experiences, but also the questions that you have on what's happening in the world, especially now, and how we're responding 25 years since the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, and many, many other pacts after that. Let's have Senator Christo, please, start us off. Senator Sige, please direct your question to one or specifically a panelist, or all the panelists.
Thank you so much. I like what you have all said with regard to women being used as weapons in war. Now, in Kenya, those of you who know, there has been not a war, but a fight between the electorate and leadership. And just last week, we had our 1-year anniversary of the Gen Z protests in Kenya. I was in the streets, and I remember seeing reports in our news outlets and papers saying that there are those who are in power who are organizing the takeover to turn these protests from peaceful to violent. Those people who are planning those were planning to attack women so that the message can go speak further and clearer, right? You can threaten by attacking women and then having them splashed all over the news so that fear can continue ruling the day. Now, what is also reported is that not only are women being used as weapons in this fight, but also that women are the ones who are organizing women to be used as weapons in this fight, if that makes sense. Women are now becoming in Kenya the organizers, the ones who are planning for violence in Kenya. So my question to the panelists, either one can pick. What do we do when women should be part of the peace process, but now actually are being used as part of the war process? What do we do in those circumstances? Thank you.
Wow. Let's take two more, and then we will come to you. Let's take two more questions. Let's take one from, do we have any from this side? Here. We have one at the back there, and I'll come back to this side for the other one. Could we have the microphone at the back? Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Excuse me, please. Okay. Thank you very much. I learned so much from my brother while he was making his submission. So in our everyday live realities as a country, how do we have a realist evaluation of approaches that gives room for psychosocial support system, as you rightly mentioned, and in relation to the TRC, how that has been implemented, because that in itself will help to solve or prevent future problems in our country.
Thank you for that question. Let's have you, and then we'll come back. We'll come back for another round. Let's have the mic at the front.
Thank you. My name is Mariam Darwish. I'm based here in Sierra Leone, a British Egyptian woman. My question is a question I've been grappling with for some time around this, our role as global citizens in advocating for peace. I don't know about the rest of you, but it's quite demotivating to be alive in the world that we are in today, to feel very helpless in the face of the struggles that we are just seeing day in and day out. And it's emotionally very draining. Even just thinking about it and speaking about it in a space like this feels very difficult, because a lot of the time we feel helpless. And we're part of spaces like this that, tell us we should be doing more. We should be speaking up more. But when we look at some of the conflicts around us, and also some of the spaces that have been built to hold people accountable, like the UN and other parties, and how they seem to be able to do very little to actually hold anybody accountable, it leaves us with this feeling of more helplessness. So I guess what I'm asking everybody, and it's not just the panelists, but how do we navigate this space to not just live focusing on us or our little spaces that we're in, but actually make a difference? Be proud of who we are and what we're saying, and being the global citizens that we feel we should be, and find the right spaces to channel that energy that leaves us very emotional, but also very helpless sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you for those three wonderful questions. Let's turn back to our panelists now to reflect on women being used or recruited to use women as pawns in conflict-related violence. And the question by the gentleman in the back and by Mariam, let's hear from you. We'll start from you, Ishmael, and we'll come this way and see if we have some more time for one more round.
Let me take the first question from our honorable member of parliament from Kenya. So Joan Galton once said, since war was constructed in the mind of men, so must peace be. And so in the circumstance wherein the women are actually, organizing, as you put it, it is also based on what the circumstance and the situations are and what they're exposed to. So there are many situations wherein the underdogs are being conscientized wrongly with the wrong information. And so we have responsibility to consistently listen to what their concerns are and have a very open and realistic conversation and dialogue. So people are able to express themselves openly and clearly. That is the only way we can avoid conflicts, especially in Africa. Africans are naturally people who are very open-minded when it comes to having realistic conversation about what our issues are, and we have to be able to ensure that on a consistent basis we listen. Many a times we listen to the back talks, as we normally call them here. We don't pay attention to what the real concerns are. When we pay attention to what the real concerns are, and we're willing, because African leaders are full of ego, and you need to understand this. When we take the ego away and we listen and have a frank conversation, problems are solved very quickly.
Indeed.
And the second part, the second question that I want to take is from the brother that mentioned around TRC and how we can prevent or solve problems around that. Because the reality is, I can tell you authoritatively that successive governments have failed in making sure that we have a national commemoration day for the conflicts in Sierra Leone. We still talk about the Day of the African Child, which is really very good because we're part of the continent and we're very proud of. But we have to be able to ensure that we have a day that we will commemorate and reflect on what happened to Sierra Leoneans. We should think about Cry Freetown. We have many days. Cry Freetown happened. January 6th was a sad day. May 25 was another sad day. And we had also the day that the conflict itself started. So all those dates are actually being ignored successively, and it's unfortunate, and it brings a lot of anger to some of us who felt the pain, because it's actually supposed to have been something that we should not be begging for.
Yeah.
It should be something that we should be frank and sincere about. In conflict management, we have what we call papering the cracks of the wall. If there's a crack on this wall and you put a nice photo there, doesn't mean that the conflict, that crack has been fixed. You will see the nice photo, but by the time you actually remove that photo, the crack will be real and will have been expanded. So we have to be able to be sincere. Truth and sincerity is what we lack in our country. And that is unfortunate because we have to always ensure that we have real and sincere conversations about where do we want to go. I am hoping that in 2028 elections, we will be able to have a genuine and sincere citizens manifesto where it will reflect the voices of Sierra Leoneans on what we want to achieve as a country. We don't want to see a situation wherein when SLPP leave, APC comes, the agenda changes and priorities changes. And when SLPP comes again, when APC leaves, agenda changes and priority changes. Sierra Leoneans continues to suffer, and we will continue to go backward instead of going forward. And that is what the realities are, because we need to have genuine and sincere conversations about what we want as a country, devoid of our party colors.
I agree with you. As a Kenyan who is very passionate about progress and development in my country, and all Kenyans are indeed very passionate, we are often reminded that no one is coming to save us. The responsibility has to be upon us. So the responsibility of building the governance that you want, Ishmael, has to be by Sierra Leoneans, not by the politicians. So take the reins and join the right campaign. Yes, please. And also you can contribute to some of the other questions that you want to answer.
Thank you. I think I wanted just to jump on what he said, and just for those who know, I've been here just for 1.5 years. But when I came, Sierra Leone was not at this stage. There was, it was just after an attempted coup, and I would say a failed election because it was not accepted by the opposition. And there was a peace process going on. And I was appointed to be facilitating a very tricky process, having the main opposition facing government and trying to sort all the issues that came out of the elections. And I want to come to what he just said, that they are waiting for 2028 to change. It's not 2028, it's today. I believe if you don't work toward 2028, you will not get anything. And for us as the UN, we are here to support, and we are ready to support. But we need to hear those voices, because it's not in 2028 that the issues will be addressed. It's today. That is where I wanted to take the conversation from. And for the issue of women being used, again, I'm a woman, but I don't want to be hearing that women are being used. We are not tools. We have voice to also raise. Why are they accepting to be used? That is to the Kenyan women. I believe we need to really think of what, again, the mayor said in the morning. When you are sitting as a woman leader, you should not be politicizing everything. And I don't think you should come out and say women are being used. Those women who are there as leaders should talk to the others and come up with a voice. Because now that they are in crisis, they are taking side, meaning that they are not ready for leading. So they are not good leaders, because they are not doing what they should be doing as a peacemakers. When we are, that's just what I wanted to say on that part on using women. And it's the same as when we say we are using youth during crisis. We need those youth to be capacitated to understand that they should not be used. And that is, again, a role of the UN. We are trying to do here a lot of programs with youth, emphasizing on women, to see if they can understand that they are not people to be used when crises are coming.
Yeah.
The last point on the question on advocating for peace and being demotivated. I stand as UN again and say, we are in 2025. Sierra Leone has been going after the war. The UN supported the making peace during the war, and after the war they started building peace. But up to date, our peace building fund has been engaging on different programs to address issues around all conflict routes that have been identified. Up to date, there are issues. Now the questions are, and I'm coming to what she's saying, we are having the same questions. What do we do in Sierra Leone on peace building? After 20 years trying to work on peace building and still facing the same issues. Now the question is, what are the causes of conflict today? Are we still in 2002 or 2025? Do we still facing the same issues? This is why the UN is saying, instead of coming after crisis and building the crisis, we want to go on prevention. To prevent that issues happens in countries. And we count on women, because women are the ones, again, paying the price when the crises are there. And they should be able to come out and really bring the issues on the table and be able to talk to bring the men. Because if you leave it to the men, the questions will not be addressed in the right way. And I think that is where we are still missing the point of how do we engage on peace building. So let's try when it's not yet a crisis. And women should stand and really be focused. And the other point is all those issues that were not addressed. How do we get them back? We are now going to do another analysis on the real issues in Sierra Leone. We are recruiting experts to help us understand the real causes of conflict in Sierra Leone, because it's not clear. And the discussions are ongoing, and I wanted to invite those who want really to contribute to our analysis to help us understand what is the context. How do we help Sierra Leone not going back to where they are coming from? I thank you.
I believe strongly in having the title when you're doing the work. Tech team, this broadcasting station is still live? In sound? Okay, great. I believe that those who do the work must also get the title. So if we are requiring women to step up, we must also put them in charge. If we're requiring women to pick up the reins, we must also hand them the mantle. And as a Kenyan, I want to say that the liberation protests have been carried on the shoulders of young women. They have led, and they continue to lead. There is an attempted hijack of the narrative, just as they did at independence, that women are either not participating or they are being used to retrogress the protests. So we also have to be aware that we have to guard against the erasure of the contribution of women in peace building or in liberation movements. Madam Minister, it is disheartening to hear that the trauma that has been passed on to Sierra Leoneans through the war does not find resonance and recognition by government. And I think that there's been an honest request for commitment. And the people of Sierra Leone, through Ishmael, require that the government considers commemorating the lives that were lost and what happened in Sierra Leone. What commitment are you making to that request?
Because we're discussing women and peace building, the recovery of Sierra Leone tells us that women are not only victims of conflict, but also peace builders. They have led reconciliations, they have built trust, and they have healed homes. So this is the status of women. And for that, I feel that before answering the question you asked, I just want to give this. Because I feel that there's a lot that we're not doing with our frameworks. The way we structured our frameworks, we have not been able to enforce them as much as we can because of so many other things. And when you look at, for instance, you cannot get women to the table when you do not support them first to win elections. And those women that win elections, after winning, how do we carry them along? Is one of the gaps. Another one is those that lose elections, we just leave them behind. They lost everything. Some will lose their husbands, their children, and everything. We don't carry them along. And when we carry them along, it will help us because they will also gain strength, they will rebuild, and then have the motivation to contest again so that they will always find themselves on the table. The structure we're seeing now is that we need more women to be at decision-making helm. Once we have them, you will see issues of decision of women being taken seriously because you cannot have men to decide on the bodies of women. You cannot have men to decide on what should happen to women. Women should do that. And because we want women to do that, we need to bring them there. We need to allow them to come. So for me... What we need now What we need now is a system that puts women on the decision-making table. This is what we need. And on the question that you asked about the national recognition, of course, this is something even in my days as a civil society activist, which I still believe I do practice today. I keep saying, yeah, because I'm saying this because I am one of those ministers of government that allow or develops or establish cross-party initiatives. Because I believe that when women work together, devoid of their political party differences, they create a difference.
Absolutely.
So it is very much important. And for us to have the national recognition, this has been a call that all of us have been calling. But my government remains committed. I will continue to say that I will take this message. I'm just a messenger here. But I'll take the message to wherever is necessary, and we'll discuss, because this is a national discourse. It is not only the political party that discuss this or take decisions. It is a national discourse that requires each and everybody's participation for us to see how do we make the national, to recognize those days that we have lost in this country that led us to where we are today, rebuilding. By now, we should be a country that should be there. As a small country that I would always say it is unfortunate because with all the mineral resources that we have, governments past and present, we have not been able to create the change that we all desire. So we need a national movement.
Indeed, growth begins really when we start to acknowledge the things that we've missed. Madam Minister, read us your pledge.
Okay, so, hi, I, Satam Mahoy, the Minister of Gender and Children's Affairs in Sierra Leone, pledge to use this Women, Peace and Security agenda to establish structures and implement laws and policies that guarantee space for women and girls, investments in their work by breaking the old rules that have kept them far away for too long and allow them to thrive with a protective lens.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much. Please drop your pledge now or later. I know that it's very elaborate, but that is the pledge Madam Minister is making. Madam Seraphine, please read us your pledge.
I did not take a pledge, but as I said when I was introducing, I read the format.
Yeah.
And I found it's not really matching with our organization. I cannot say I endorse Africa Young Women Beijing Plus 25 Manifesto. I don't know it. Yes, that's what I was saying. I was not briefed before, so I cannot say I'm committing. So, but I saw Amina Mohammed coming tomorrow on the call. So after her talk, I will do my pledge and drop it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Seraphine. Ishmael, read us your pledge.
Okay. I, Ishmael Alfred Charles, endorse Africa Young Women's Beijing Plus 25 Manifesto. I commit to demand 2, which is to criminalize gender and gender-based violence, specifically on increasing education and empower women and girls, because when women and girls have more education on SGBV-related issues, then they can demand their rights, and that will make it criminal. I pledge to promote education and help women and girls so that they can criminalize SGBV. We have just submitted a proposal to a partner in Spain, and we are hopeful that we will get this funding, so we will continue to do the work around SGBV across 40 communities that we have identified. And in my capacity as the programs manager of Caritas Freetown, signed on this first day of July 2025, which happens to be my mother's birthday, even though she is in heaven.
Thank you very much to my wonderful panelists, to you, our audience, for engaging with us. We have come to the end of the panel with 3 minutes to spare for the photo. Let me leave you with this. Peace built without women is a temporary truce with injustice. True peace begins when women are not just present, but powerful. Thank you very much, and let us continue the conversation.